Hang on to your seatbelt, folks, and we're back on another episode of God Live B2B Jam Session. Today, I'm talking with a good friend of mine, but before I introduce to you who I'm talking to, because he's just an awesome guy, I want to make sure that you are safe and healthy wherever you're tuning in from. Hope you are well. Hope you're hanging in tight. Happy Wednesday. Yay for Wednesday. Show love if you're watching this from California, Oakland, wherever you're watching it from. Let us know how your Wednesday is going. If you're having fun, if you're enjoying yourself, if you're enjoying family, maybe, or this nice weather that we're having here in Oakland, California. Shout out to Oakland. With that said, Sree Sreenivasan is the inaugural Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. He is a leading social and digital media consultant and trainer working with nonprofits, startups, companies, and executives around the world, not just in the US, in India, in the UK, in Japan. Sree is global. He's a global phenomenon, global personality, and someone that I'm grateful and thankful enough to follow on Twitter, as well as a few other social platforms. In 2015, Fast Company, yes, the Fast Company, named him one of the 100 most creative people in business. And in 2010, he was named one of the 35 most influential people on social media by the Pointer Institute. That's influence, y'all. Influence. In 2014, he was named the most influential CDO, and that's Chief Digital Officer by CDO Club, which is really exclusive. And in 2012, he was named to a C list of the most important journalists of the previous 100 years by Unity, Journalists of Color. So this guy is quite remarkable. He's like a social amoeba. Like he's everywhere socially, and I love that about Sree. And that's why I'm always following him for what's going on and what's currently trending in the world. And one thing he's been doing recently that I've been keeping track of is he's been really focused on covering what's been going on with COVID-19, sharing his thoughts, and also engaging with his community. And even most recently with the death of John Lewis, he actually shared a few comments and thoughts around that. How his encounters with John Lewis and what this means for what's going on around the social justice movement that we're seeing in today's day and age. And I think today I really want to dive deep on a little bit about his background, how he got started in his work as a digital technology leader, as well as this media personality and journalist. And then more importantly, I want him to share a little bit about his thoughts of what's going on in the world, given how COVID-19 has kind of caused this triggering effect to challenge businesses to, one, adapt digital technology, but how it's also caused a lot of conversation around social justice issues as well, and how businesses should be more inclusive and ethical in how they build their culture and how they build their organizations. With that said, I'm excited to have Sree on the show today. Welcome, Sree.
Hello. Delighted to be here. I love being in your studio because you're covering my bald spot. My tiny bald spot is being covered beautifully by this logo of yours.
Oh my goodness, man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Sree, I would love for you to share a little bit about where are you tuning in from, man? Because you're always all over the world. I can't keep up with you, man.
I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I'm actually going to stand up here and show you where we are, right on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And
West Side.
The West Side, that's right. And there you see the famous skyline. Over there, you see the Hudson River and New Jersey. If you've seen Hamilton, you know the line, everything is legal in New Jersey. And down here, look how quiet Manhattan is right now.
Wow.
Because of everything going on. We're in a different phase than you are out in California. We're worried about you guys.
Yeah.
We were the epicenter. Now you guys are becoming the epicenter. We're really concerned. Over here, you can see Central Park out in the distance.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let me to share a little bit about how have you been handling everything personally, given what's going on in New York, because you guys were the hotbed for quite some time, and now it's just migrated to California, and we are taking this very seriously, but given when it started in New York, how were you feeling? What were your thoughts, and how do you think New York has kind of overcame it as a city?
Yeah, I think we're not saying it too loud because we're worried because anything can go wrong at any moment, especially as things open up. I think that's what happened in California. You guys were ahead of us, right? Thanks to Mayor London Breed and others. You actually locked down tight. And then those folks in Orange County, those folks wanted to be more free and they opened up too fast. And now California is suffering in a big way. And so we're worried about you guys. Out here, we are right now in a better place than we were in March, April, May, June. And so we're just holding our breath, hope it just holds. My family and I are in Manhattan, as you just saw. You should know that my wife and kids, without checking with me, they called a neighbor who had moved out of the building and said, you must let Sree borrow your apartment because he's doing too many of these Zoom calls, too many live shows, and therefore he's driving us crazy. If you don't let him use the apartment, we will kill him. And then you will need to let us use the apartment for the funeral. So take your pick. And so our friends Rajni and Ramnath were kind enough to lend us their beautiful apartment. So this is my studio during the day, and then I go home for dinner and production, and then I come back after dinner. I come back, do my nightly show, and that's how we behave out here in New York.
I love the way you're moving, Sree. No, that's what we call community right there. And I want you to share a little bit. And shout out to Spin It Social, who is saying mask up, people. Definitely put on your mask, y'all. Let's be conservative, and safe and cautious about what's going on right now in the world. And shout out to Mr. Spin It or Mrs. Spin. Oh, Mr. Spin It Social. Here we go. Now Tim gets to ask Sree the questions. You guys were a riot the other night. Thank you so much, Mr. Spin It Social. You are awesome.
Yeah, that's my friend Stephen Kaplan, by the way, who has his own awesome show every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. He hosts a show about social media and photography. He's a former New York Times photo editor for 20 years, and he does a great job. And so everyone check it out and follow him at Spin It Social on all platforms.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to Spin It Social. Sree, I would love for you to share a little bit about your shows. So how long have you been running these shows? Because you have like 3 shows. I only have 1. We only have 1 here, but you have 3 shows, which is, I just think, mind-boggling. And I don't even know how you find the time. But tell us a little bit of how did they start? What inspired them? And also, how long have you really been you're someone I consider a digital anthropologist, a social media guru. So how long have you been in this space?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm old, so that means I've been around for a long time. I used to do workshops back in the day about email and the value of email and how to do email. That's how old I am. I was a professor at Columbia Journalism School for 20 years, started teaching in the fall of 1993. And we barely had email at the time. And then I was a television journalist and teaching television first, and then I moved over to the internet and started teaching email. Then we started doing websites, HTML, how to make a website, and then we kept moving. We moved to blogs, then we moved to social, and now we did audio and then video, blog, podcasts, all of that stuff. And along the way, it's always been the same, trying to help people understand technology, help them get better and smarter at technology. I always say it's not your fault. Tech is tough. And the people who make technology often don't understand that. So I had a television career for about 12, 15 years. I was on New York City television at super early in the morning talking about tech. I was called a tech guru on Channel 7 here in New York. And it was an amazing experience to be on the air at 6:45 talking about things that now are commonplace, things that like the Roomba, self-cleaning, the self-cleaning robot, for example, the robot vacuum cleaner, or Zipcar. These are all household brand names now, but we did among the very first stories about them, Pandora, and all of these tools that we now take for granted. They didn't exist. Kayak, for example. You remember kayaks used to be something you put on the water and you rode? That was called a kayak. You remember when Amazon was a jungle in Latin America? Like, things change, right? And brands change. So that was my background. I was teaching digital media. And then about 5 years ago, when Facebook Live started, I said, I've got to play with this. And so we started something very informally called the New York Times Read Along, where I would read out loud the print New York Times on Sundays like a crazy person. And we'll now hit 5 years in October. That means 5 years of reading every Sunday out loud the New York Times. Thousands of people watch. We have guests from the New York Times join us on occasion. We have other interesting people, and we just talk. And all of this can be found on all my social media platforms. That's show number 1. Show number 2 started with COVID 132 days ago. I know that number because it's show number 133 today. Every single day we do a different topic. And we had you on. You were very kind to join us for show 130. We called it Positivity Night, saying with all the bad stuff happening in the world. There's still opportunity to be positive. And I could find no one else who's more positive or has a bigger smile and better laugh than you. So we had you on last Sunday. Everyone, check out that show. I turned the
awesome
on this guy. It was fantastic. I learned so much. He inspired so many people, and so many people commented. You can find it on @Sree or my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SreeNet. So every single day, including weekends, we've been putting together that show. We're covering 3 crises in there: the health crisis, economic crisis, and the racial injustice crisis. And then finally, since you were kind enough to ask, we have a third show that I do. It's a spin-off of the show that I just mentioned. It's called Coping with COVID, a helpful, hopeful call-in show. It's on WBAI Radio. It's a progressive radio station out here in New York, part of the Pacifica Network. And you haven't lived until you have been on a call-in show in New York on WBAI. Fabulous people calling in from New York and around the world. And we also have extreme left, extreme right people calling in and saying the same thing.
Yeah.
They agree with each other. They say Bill Gates is controlling coronavirus and the vaccines. They're not going to take it, and they're not wearing masks. So the exact same thing that their opposites say, they say. And that's what we're doing. It's all to help as many people as we can. And we're so grateful to have the opportunity to talk about that any chance we can.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so important that you're driving these conversations, because I think people definitely need online spaces to be able to share what's on their mind and what's on their hearts around this. You know, that's why I was really honored that you even had me on your show, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been wanting to share and talk a little bit more about this. And who better to talk about it with than someone that's been really keeping track of it for like the last few months now too. And I think the powerful thing about what I love about your show is that you're bringing people from diverse perspectives to talk about it. But I really want to get your perspective, because I think it's because you're often the one that's on the other end of the seat. You're often the one doing the interviewing and not being interviewed. So this is an opportunity for you to share what your thoughts are. You know, how do you see COVID-19 has changed the landscape for businesses? What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is the most dramatic, highest impact set of events to happen in America since World War II, and before that, the Civil War. And that's just when you think about what Mother Nature is doing to us.
Yeah.
Add on top of that human nature and the mistakes that everyday people make, and add on top of that the crisis and chaos caused by government leadership at every level, starting in Washington, state level, municipal level. Add on top of that all the misinformation, disinformation being injected into all of us. Add into that the unique opportunity of the death of George Floyd and what that has brought on at a very tragic circumstances. I am seeing those 3-4 things, you know, coming together in a way that no one could have predicted. And we always said that this country isn't ready for true chaos and true pain, and that's what we're going through. I want to say to everybody who's listening that you've got to understand that all 3 of these crises are related. The health, financial, and racial crises are related. We saw that people of color were disproportionately affected by this to begin with. And the financial situation is so bad. You know, we were told that this is the greatest economy in history, but 40% of Americans couldn't write a $500 check for an unexpected expense before the crisis. Meaning, if you had to fly across the country for a funeral, you couldn't do it before the crisis. So we were told that was the greatest economy in history. So then imagine after that, 10, 20, 30, 40 million people losing their jobs. I have lost my job and in the past, and I know the pain it goes through. One person losing one job, what it does to me, what it did to me, what it did to my family, what it did to just our circle around us, what it did to our dry cleaner. I sent out fewer shirts to clean, right? And then imagine that 19, 20 million people. And I don't think we're treating this like the biggest crisis since the Civil War and World War II. I do not think we have grown up leadership in this country, and we are paying the price. You know the stat that South Korea and the United States got their first case on the same day. South Korea is 55 times more dense than America in terms of the way
Yes.
people live.
Very.
And you've seen that while South Korea was approaching 200 deaths, we were approaching 50,000, 70,000, 80,000 deaths. So when someone tells you, as we've been told, that 99% of the cases are harmless, when we're told that this will go away and it'll all magically disappear, we are all paying the price right now. And I feel especially bad for California, because you folks did the sacrifice of staying at home for 3 months.
Yeah.
And now the first wave never went away, and now you're suffering. The people in Florida and Texas and Arizona never blocked down the way you guys did. So it's doubly problematic what's happened to you.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. And I was actually in Texas for a little bit. I actually left California to go to Texas, spend some time with my family, and then I came back to California. And while I was in Texas, they are very lax on how they're treating this COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, barbershops are open. You can go to a few restaurants and do pickup, but we're seeing that a lot of different states are treating this differently. It's not across the board. Everyone is taking it as seriously as California or New York. And I think to your point, Sree, it does come down to leadership, right? In terms of how leaders should be driving this and making sure that they're staying up to date with the local counties, and even at the federal level, where we do expect and hopefully hope that there more action will be taken. And it's been really laxed at that level. I want to ask you, Sree, do you feel as if, I don't think anyone was ready for COVID-19, but on an optimistic standpoint, because, we still have to be positive about it, I'm actually starting to see so much innovation happen around people thinking about new ways for us to embrace what our next normal could look like. And one of my favorite examples has been the mask, right? Everyone now is like taking on this identity of like, let's wear a mask. But what's been so fascinating for me is that I'm now seeing companies think about how do we make wearing a mask feel much more comfortable, much more human, right? Like where people can actually embrace it and we can all keep each other protected. Are you seeing any other types of innovative thinking around how we can adapt and kind of get comfortable with this next normal that we're moving towards?
Yeah, I think this is something that I think about all the time. What innovations are going to come out of this? We're already starting to see some, and it's really about breaking through the logjam of resistance to change. One of my favorite sayings is, I'm all for progress, it's change I cannot stand. And many of the things that we are going through now should have happened years ago, but inertia, bureaucracy, corporate stagnation, all of that led to a mindset where change didn't happen. I've had people call me and say, Sree, aren't you thrilled? This is what you've been talking about for 20 years. It's all come true. And I said, not at the expense of the world melting down. That's no consolation for what is happening right now. So I'm not happy that that's what it's taking. But now that we're here, what can we learn from this? What can we go as businesses, as small nonprofits, big nonprofits, individuals, communities, and as a nation, what can we do? We saw in the stats of America, one of the things that we're also talking, just as we're going to go back to school, right? At the college level, school level, August, September, I'm so worried about what's going to happen because we're not ready. We all thought it was going to be one thing in April, and now it's something different. And we are seeing that this country is not ready. And even with remote learning, for example, this is a place where there's been so much change, right? Like suddenly people had 2 days to suddenly go online and teach and learn. And we saw how hard it is for people to teach and learn at the most expensive, the elite schools and elite public schools, like you studied at UT Austin, all of those places, or Harvard, or the small kindergarten classes, it didn't matter. Everybody was suddenly thrown online. And we learned that teachers have no training in this, and students had no training in this. Just because they're young, we think young people are all good at all digital stuff. They're good at the stuff they know. And they were suddenly thrown online. They didn't know anything about Zoom. They didn't know how it worked, what it did, what is the ways of behavior and etiquette and all of that. And everybody had to learn. So that was in March. But if you tell me now, as we get ready for September, that we haven't learned much in terms of, we've learned how to use the tools a little bit, but are we doing teaching in a new way? Many places are doing that. at my own school, where I'm a visiting professor at Stony Brook School of Journalism at State University of New York. Woo! We have learned the value of thinking about the flipped classroom, right? What you do is you have to kind of prepare material in advance, have people watch it, and then come together to discuss, right? Like that's the best kind of digital learning. Otherwise, in March, what were we all doing, including me? Just taking our lessons and putting it on Zoom, just the way like when radio was there and then television came, they just took the same thing and put it on television, right? Like, so that will change as things move along. But we as a country, we as businesses have a big obligation to lead our customers, lead our folks with us. And I don't think all of us have been doing a good job. There are so many new tools and things coming out, including Guide App. I can't wait. I only did this show so I can get on the early trial. This is a one-on-one opportunity for me to ask the CEO to let me in.
You're in, my friend. You're in.
Do you remember the there's a line from, I mean, one of the things we're not trying to be political here, but one of the things about Donald Trump is that he was in pop culture all the time, right? Whether it's films or anything. In the Nelly song Country Grammar, he says, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, let me in now, right? Like that's his line. Let me in now. Like I'm saying to Tim Salau, let me in on Guide App. But that was the power of communication, the power of marketing, the power of telling your story, even if it's a fake story in his case.
Yeah.
Is it put him in the White House. And I don't think anybody has understood better than Donald Trump how to use social, how to use digital. And look what he got, the ultimate prize in the world.
Yeah. I think it speaks to the power of how, now you have to leverage these digital tools to be able to scale your message, scale your leadership, and how powerful they are. And I think what I love that you touched on earlier is that they're powerful at spreading information and communicating what you want your narrative to be, but also the misinformation and the toxicity. I think the world is feeling that at a major level, and I think it's why it's even tougher for us to move on during this pandemic, because no one knows who to trust. And I want you to share a little bit about what you think that we can do as a society to make sure that we're putting much more quality out there. And I think that's why we're building Guide, because we want to create a quality educational platform for professionals. But like, what do you think we can do as leaders to make sure that we're putting trusted content out there, or we're more importantly, more intentional about filtering out who we read and consume information from?
Yeah, we have an obligation ourselves as consumers, and we have an obligation of those of us who are content creators. And we need both sides of that equation to pay attention and to be really mindful of what we throw out into the world. There are multiple ways in which we can think about this. One of them is to say that I'm going to be responsible for the stuff that I see out in the world and that I choose to share. Every time you push retweet, or every time you hit share, you're going to do the homework to not be sucked in and not be gullible. That doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. I've made so many. I take 3 to 6 to 10 minutes on every post I write.
Wow.
Why? Because I know that if I get something wrong, I'll get called out on it. I know if I get something wrong, people will pay attention in a way that if I get it right, they won't pay attention. I tell people, write every tweet as if it's your last tweet.
I love that.
So what happens is when I like if I say, oh my God, New York buses are really slow, and then I get hit by a bus, that would be not good way to go. So I'm always thinking about this. What is your last tweet going to be? Leonard Nimoy, who was Mr. Spock, had a beautiful last tweet about the universe and gardens and all of this. But that's because he was Leonard Nimoy. He was Mr. Spock. He could talk like that and write like that. I don't want to go out being some whiny guy on Twitter complaining about my armrest on my seats. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. So think about what you're sharing in the world and the impact of it. Is it going to add to the conversation, or is it just adding to the noise? So that's on the creator end. And on the consumer end, just be mindful of your sources. We're all following. simultaneously following too many people and following too few people.
Yeah.
Keep churning your followee list. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you following, so that you can really check to see, how do you make sure you're getting good voices into your feed. And if you do that, you can have an enormous impact on changing your own well-being and of your followers.
Yeah, no, so I love that so much because, that's actually something that I do. I often go through this process of pruning my feed and pruning who I'm following, who I'm consuming content from. And for me, because I love social media and I love learning from people from different perspectives. But you eventually start to see the people who often aren't sharing anything that's of value. So it's like, why am I connected with you, or why am I following you? And then there's people who are always sharing something. Oh, this is quality. This is relatable. This is something I can learn from. And you continue to engage with them. And I think, I love the steps that platforms such as Twitter and LinkedIn are doing to like make sure that there's quality content on their platforms, because I think we need definitely more of those types of social media platforms in the world. But I want to move on to a different subject, because you had the fortunate opportunity to meet the late, great John Lewis, who recently passed away. And I want to have a moment of silence and say rest in peace, John Lewis, who was an American social justice leader that really did so much to kind of really move the movement and move the needle around creating a more equitable world. Sree, what was that experience like? What did you learn from him? And, how do you think we can all keep his legacy going?
Thank you for reminding us all about John Lewis. I don't think we can do enough of that. You're referring to my Twitter feed. If you're watching, in the next few days, you'll see that I have a picture with the John Lewis on my Twitter feed. And the reason I have that is that I've been in the same room, big rooms with him more than one occasion, but one annual dinner that I MC, a gala for the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Juju Chang and I MC that. You may know her from ABC, fabulous journalist. And we got to MC this event where he was honored by the Asian American community. And there you see, he was not there as a Black leader. He was there as a leader, as an American leader. He's not a civil rights leader only. He's an American leader, as an American icon. And he came, and I had to take a selfie with him. And so I've got the camera, and he says, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a professor at Columbia Journalism School." That's where I was teaching. And he's watching, and in the photo you can see him talking while I'm taking the selfie, and he's saying, "Sree, thank you for teaching journalists, because without journalists, we couldn't have done what we did back in the day." He was talking about the civil rights movement and the documentation, right? We saw him beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge like that. By the way, I hope it gets renamed the John Lewis Bridge. But that's what put part of the story of the civil rights movement on the map, was seeing him beaten, and through his blood and through his pain came the passage of the Civil Rights Act and so many other things that have happened. And so he understood the power of journalists. And so when he passed, by the way, I also experienced the problem of don't just share in something. Someone said he had passed on Friday night at about 11 p.m. Eastern time. So I just finished my show, and I trusted the person who posted it because he's never wrong. He's a good source. I posted it. Immediately, somebody called me out and said, "That's not verified. It's a rumor." And I got, oh my God, I made a mistake. The thing I preach, don't do. Yeah. And then by the time I went to correct it, someone had said, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. It is true."
That is the right source.
So even in that little moment, he was teaching me. John Lewis was teaching me, even in the middle of him having passed. He was teaching us so many things, and a couple of things that stand out to me from the aftermath of his passing and all the great comments that came out. And you saw Barack Obama wrote out a Medium post where he talked about, at the inauguration, he told John Lewis that this was because of you that I am here. And that was just wonderful to see. I saw so many great quotes from all kinds of people, all sides of the political spectrum. But we also saw Marco Rubio post a picture of Elijah Cummings, who's also passed away, great leader, and say, think that's John Lewis. Okay, and we saw the White House wait for Donald Trump waited several hours to issue the half-staff order, and so basically John Lewis got a half a day, and that was again nothing of the like that's not accidental when that happened. So we're trying to be positive here because we learned from John Lewis that even when he was beaten, he forgave the members of the KKK who attacked him. You may have seen clips of his going on CNN and meeting one of the people who beat him, decades ago. And he said, I forgive you. How many of us have the strength to do that? How many of us have the courage and fortitude and big heart to do that? I know I don't, but he did.
Yeah, no, that's so powerful, Sree. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And really, I think, I never got to meet him personally, but the fact that I know people who have, such as you, who can recount his aura, his energy, and his legacy, I think it's an honor in itself. So thank you so much, Sree, for continuing to, lead the movement that he started and being, I think, a beacon for change and diversity and inclusion in a lot of what you do. I want to show love to the people who have been tuning in. Shout out to Michael Henderson, who says intentions versus outcomes. Preach to that, my brother. And shout out to Michael, who says he also can't wait for the Guide app to launch. We're excited, Michael. We're so excited to bring it out to the world and hopefully give you beta access soon as well. And Michael also says creative accountability is important in whatever that you do. How do you feel about that, Sree? Do you agree?
I love that term, creative accountability. You are responsible for the things you put out into the world. Like, you can't put something out and say, oh, I didn't mean it. Or you retweet a Fire Fauci tweet and then say, oh, I didn't notice that. Or you retweet white power and say, I didn't hear that in the video. Like, you are responsible for your own content. Unless you've been hacked, you are responsible. And by the way, everyone listening, two-factor authentication. We call it 2FA. Everybody must do this. Google it and do it on your Gmail. Do it on your Facebook. Do it on your Twitter, because there are people coming for you, and they will get you if you don't have 2FA. That doesn't mean that you'll be safe because you have it, but it would be your fault if that's the way they get into your services and things like that.
Yeah, that's powerful. Sree, thank you so much for joining us today on the Guide Live B2B Jam session. Sree, what's next? What's where can the people follow you in the movement that you're creating with your 3 shows and your global social presence, man?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, my business team will be mad at me if I don't mention the business that we have. It's called DigiMentors, and digimentors.group is the website. And what we are a social, digital, and virtual events consulting business, and we do dozens of virtual events every month. Our slogan, don't cancel your real life event without talking to us. Don't plan your Zoom calls without talking to us. We can help you, whatever platform. We did an event for 100,000 people, the world's largest gathering of teachers. Wow. We did that in 35 days. We can do events that size or small, meaningful gatherings. Talk to us on that. And my shows, you can find everything on my Twitter handle @Sree. You can also check out my newsletter, which is at sreenet.substack.com, and my YouTube archives, youtube.com/Sreenet, SREENET. One thing I want to say, Tim, that I learned this summer, like this spring, I decided I'm going to work on a couple of things. One is doing a daily program. Don't do it, is my message to everybody. Don't do it unless you have a whole team. We have 2 wonderful producers. They work so hard with us, but it's so hard to do a daily show. That's why CNN rocks the world, is do all those great TV shows. Second, I learned to learn Canva and really work on it and work on my design skills. I've improved them a little bit, but there's we used to always say we can teach tools, we can teach tech, but we can't teach the third T. The third T is taste, right? You can't teach that.
I love that. I love that so much.
So I'm getting better at Canva, and I'm getting better at graphic design. We have a wonderful art designer and art director on my team named Sree Sreenivasan, who has been teaching me. She was my intern at the Metropolitan Museum when I was a chief digital officer there, and then she's gone on to work at Vogue and Vogue India, and then now she works with us. We're so lucky. And the third thing I learned is I'm going to learn how to use YouTube as a creator instead of just a consumer. And oh my God, it is so hard. I started with 200 followers, or subscribers and producing every day. I learned that YouTube is an amazing tool for creators, but you got to put in the work. You have to do the work. You have to earn every subscriber one at a time. It's not like getting subscribers to your newsletter. It's not like getting followers on Twitter, not like getting connections on LinkedIn. You have to work it. And one of my favorite quotes about from working at the Metropolitan Museum was a quote from Picasso, who said, "Opportunity exists, but it has to find you working." And so I decided I'm going to just keep working on it, and I grew my followership fivefold, but that's still 1,000 people, right? When I have channels, with 70 times the size on that, I learned how much work goes into it. So my hat's off to all the millennials, all the Gen Z folks who have mastered YouTube and because you can spend hours with every video optimizing it, there are these tools, free tools, that will help you get better at YouTube, but you got to do the work. And that's one of the things I learned.
No, Sree, I agree with you 100%. So essentially, Sree just shared that he's everywhere. He's everywhere you need to find him. Video, newsletter, tweets, whatever, LinkedIn. He's everywhere.
I'm trying to catch up with you. I gotta just, trying. This is my hustle on the Upper West Side, trying to catch up with Oaktown over there.
Man, I think you're ahead of us, brother. Sree, man, it was truly a pleasure. We need to have you on for a future episode, hopefully a little bit beyond this pandemic, when things are much better, I hope.
2035, I'll see you then. You want to make a date right now?
Hopefully sooner than that, my brother.
I'd love to come on and talk about Guide App and see how good it is.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Once we get you beta access, man, you're on the wait list, brother. All right, Sree, talk to you soon, man.
Thank you.
Peace. Man, wasn't he just awesome? I love Sree. He is just a ball of energy and laughter. Next up, I do have an amazing guest that's going to actually be coming up. She is pretty awesome. She's actually going to be joining us from the UK. Michelle Noronaha. I believe I'm saying her last name right. Michelle Noronaha. And we're going to actually be talking with her about something that I'm pretty passionate about. And you all have seen me share a lot on LinkedIn and a few other social channels, which is around well-being, employee experience and engagement, as well as talent branding. So if you are interested in learning more about how HR leaders or how people can actually lead a team, a workforce within a corporation and really think about their employee wellness, are they enjoying their role? Are they enjoying their time? Michelle is the person that you need to listen to. But with that said, we're going to take a little bit of a break, a coffee break, a tea break. Make sure to go fill your cup of water, go get a meal, go get some mango lassi, because I have mango lassi with me right here, and come back. And in a few minutes, I'm really just going to start the stream again with Michelle. And I'm really excited to talk with her because she is a ball of energy as well as information on how leaders people who are building teams or people who are trying to adapt during this pandemic that we're all going through, how can they continue to motivate their teams, how can they continue to motivate themselves, and then more importantly, how should we think about employee experience for the future? So I'm going to take a break. I hope you take a break, get some water, and I'll be back to join you all. See you soon, y'all. And we are back. Super excited to have my dear friend Michelle join us. Michelle is a rock star HR coach. And literally, if you go to her LinkedIn, this is what it says. It says this. I'm going to read it verbatim. She helps HR professionals rock it at their jobs. That's what Michelle does. And she's done this for quite some time now. In fact, she started her career in HR. And today we're going to be talking about a few things that I think she's really phenomenal at, which is personal branding, really helping leaders. And more importantly, you, if you're an HR leader or if you are just a professional in yourself, how do you rock it at your job? How do you show up with the mental fortitude to kill it and love what you do? But more importantly, if you're an HR leader, how do you create a culture, a team, and help leaders do the same and being rock stars at their job and loving coming to work? Because when she thinks about the future of work, we're moving towards a future where you have to be much more human. And more importantly, you have to make sure that people are doing fulfilling work. So if you're excited as I am to listen to Michelle and talk with her, show us some love in the comments. I'm definitely going to be sharing links to her LinkedIn profile, her Twitter, and her website. And more importantly, get ready to be a part of our awesome discussion. With that said, Michelle, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
We are well. How are you?
I'm good. It's a heat wave here in the UK, so I'm loving it.
It is. How have you been hanging in there given what's going on in the world?
I've just been taking each day that comes because working in the unknown.
Yeah.
So really just going with the flow with organizations and companies, people. A lot of my work at the moment is supporting remote workers. So that's kind of a big change in the way a lot of employees are operating. So, yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, with this shift that we've seen to remote work, and, before we even dive deep on that, I would love for you to share a little bit about how long you've been working in the HR space. And, you're currently at the UK. Shout out to the UK. I know we have some lovely people who are listening and watching this right now who are from the UK. So definitely check out Michelle in the UK. How long have you been working in the HR space? And really, what got you passionate about the work that you do?
So I've been in the HR space for about 12 years.
Wow.
I've worked in sort of small corporate companies to large, big corporate companies such as KPMG. And what I learned through working in different companies was how different HR is and the perceptions. So I come across many leaders that, hey, they want to consider a HR function because of the traditional hire and fire. I use the Alan Sugar approach because it's that traditional view versus the holistic view of HR. So I'm very much an ambassador within the holistic HR of how it can really work for employees in a kind of more of a well-being sense rather than sort of the employee relations focus of HR, which is how it can be perceived a lot of the time. HR, there's a lot of leaders out there and a lot of perceptions of HR that it doesn't necessarily work to favor the employee and that it's always there to protect the company. But genuinely, my view and the way I approach HR is that it's being there for your people and putting policies and processes that support people to bring out the best in them.
Yeah, and that are humane, right? Like I've worked within organizations where their HR policies are like, what in the world? This is like complete inhumane. Like this is no one should be following this policy because it's not people centric. It's more so like animalistic.
You said it right there, right? So like in loads of companies, when I first started out, I was like, wow, this is in some of the companies I've worked in, it's so policy procedure. And I'm thinking, but how is this meant to be a people function? And then everyone has their own way in HR and find what works for them. And for me, it's very much, I like being kind of the front line. So HR business partnering roles are really great for getting out there because that's a role that's kind of the eyes and the ears of the business. But then again, some of that is a learning curve. It's personal to what that person wants to do in the field of HR. If you're slightly introverted, you might enjoy that kind of field, like the MI, the reporting. And it's really interesting in terms of the data you get and how you can support people in terms of managers with well-being and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's so powerful. So, Michelle, I want you to share a little bit more about, what is employee experience for the people who are listening in right now and don't really understand. I know what it is because you and I have talked about it before.
Yeah.
Explain it to people who don't get it.
So employee experience, the way I would describe it is that it's been no different to customers. So it's about applying kind of design thinking during your recruitment and selection process. So the minute you're advertising for a job, that's when your touch points start with kind of that engagement. So it's keeping them on board from the minute you're attracting them through your application process right till they exit the business, or if you're really, really lucky, they stay for life and they never leave. Yeah. But the employee experience never stops. It starts and it doesn't really end until they exit the business. And there's a lot of touch points from a HR perspective that you work with managers to keep that engagement moving forwards and growing and making sure that your employees are happy, but also their welfare is looked after.
No, I love that. I love that you're sharing this. And I think what's so powerful about that is that people aren't realizing that we are now in this era of employee experience, right? Where even if during a pandemic, like employees still have a deciding factor on whether or not they want to work with an employer and if they want to stay there, especially in a remote work environment.
Yeah, so exactly what you said there. I think we're operating in more of a competitive world now. And then there's a lot of research out there that supports millennials coming into the workforce. And they're looking for freedom, flexibility. Practically, a lot of the traits are kind of the opposite from years and years ago, where you'd come into a job and it's more or less for life. Nowadays, they're considered job hopping because they're looking for something that's meaningful. It's going to give them that drive, and they've got the freedom, and they're not, being mistrusted with anything, or and their talents are really being valued. So the employee experience exactly is a really, a new role as well that's coming into the HR function. Because there's more and more roles that are coming out that are specializing in the recruitment experience, employee experience, because they really see the value that if you look after your employees from the beginning, really, really can have a long-lasting positive impact for the end of the result at the end.
So I want to ask you, why do you think organizations have struggled with this so much in the past?
I think from my view on this is that I just think it's been overlooked. It's like, all right, we just need to recruit someone. Let's just get them in. Some companies haven't even really bothered with a full recruitment process. And I think the interventions and the way the world is going at the moment, the HR interventions from technology to the way the HR function has evolved, is making people rethink job roles and also touch points. And one of the key touch points is the employee experience. I've heard many, employees, if they're going for an interview at a big organization, they'll probably go to Glassdoor. And if you look on Glassdoor and you see a company hasn't got great reviews, they normally tend to fall down at their recruitment stages just because they didn't get a call back from the manager. And that speaks volumes about how that company stands for people. Because if you can't get that right, and there's a lot of people saying stuff, then that's an indication that, I don't really want to be here, or the organization.
Yeah. One of my favorite companies is Front. And they're like this really super cool company that is out in Silicon Valley, and they have this email app that is like for remote teams, so teams for teams to collaborate on, and be able to track and actually engage in email together, which is really cool. They are listed as one of the best places to work.
Oh,
culture, yeah. And then more importantly, everyone loves their CEO, and she's actually regarded as one of the top CEOs in the Valley. And I actually interviewed her in one of my past episodes. And one of the things I've noticed is that a great culture, ties back to great business outcomes, right?
Yeah.
And I would love for you, do you think that organizational leaders are going to start embracing employee experience more because there's a business imperative to it?
I really do think that they're definitely going to be embracing more and definitely investing more money into it. Just from what I've seen out on the recruitment boards, the job markets, there's more companies, even big companies like WhatsApp and Google, are looking for just employee onboarding specialist type roles, and they're looking for the theoretical as well, the theory that supports that as well. So I definitely think this is an up and coming, it's a hot spot in terms of HR, and especially for professionals in HR. So because normally I coach a lot of individuals think, I want to just do the traditional route of HR, but actually when you get into it, there are so many avenues you can have success, and it doesn't always have to be that stereotypical way going to the HR director or route. You can go, there's like, I've seen director roles just specialize in employee experience just on its own. So I can see that shows that companies are changing their ways of working.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that so much. So let's go ahead and focus on the people who are within these HR organizations or working within these companies. Right now, COVID-19 has completely changed the landscape for work, right? Everyone is now working remotely. What are your tips for some of the workers who are in organizations right now who are having a hard time staying motivated or even building a relationship with their HR people partners and don't feel as if they're being recognized? What do you recommend them to do to adapt to this current context of how we're working?
Yeah, so my first tip would be to, I've worked in companies where, they sometimes perceive HR business partners as that kind of annoying function initially, but it's actually changing your perspective and seeing that we're really there to kind of add value to the many streams that lead into it. Tend to work closely with operational. So anything that relates to kind of operations managers works really well with kind of the HR function as well. And that's where it really adds value, because operation type roles have a lot of support and they have a lot of dealings with people directly. And that's well-being engagement. And that has a trickle down effect there. So I really think it's about being open-minded, being curious, and visualizing the HR in a different way, and being just open to what they say. Even if it's policy and procedure, it's there for the right reasons, even though you can't necessarily see it.
It's so true. I like I was saying earlier, I've been in work cultures where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't talk to HR. I don't trust HR. I don't think they're there for me. And you have to shift that perception.
And that's it. It goes exactly what you said right there. And that goes back to being able to, I think the HR function in every company is different. And that comes from building trust over a period of time and getting to know your HR function rather than, hey, I've got a people issue, let me go and see what the policy says, or the disciplinary. We're much more than that. Well, definitely the way I would see HR. And I would like to think other companies are like that nowadays as well.
Yeah, I love that, Michelle. Michelle, so I want you to share a little bit about personal branding, because you are someone that is great at this. You have built an amazing personal brand for yourself on LinkedIn as a former HR professional that helps HR professionals be great at their jobs. And, one of the things that we often talk about with Guide, and even as we continue to build our platform, is the importance of talent branding and how it's going to be a cultural differentiator for companies long term, and how it actually allows you as a company to attract the type of talent that you want. Can you share a little bit about the importance of talent branding in the work that you've done?
Yeah, so talent branding for me starts, again, it links very much to the recruitment and selection process. So how a company, whether it's a startup or those well-established companies, I mean, they ideally, millennials are looking for also that connection, that wow factor that's going to make them apply and say to their friends, guess what, I'm working for this company.
Yeah.
And I work with a lot of companies to help understand what they're about and get that message across. So it's looking at their values, what their mission, their vision is, and pulling that all together. And then it's translating that message out through the job boards, through the vacancies, through the recruitment process, and then still keeping that going when they come into the business. It goes back to kind of really, if you can get the perception right, then I always believe in the classic saying, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Woo, that's powerful.
Because it's about aligning everything. So, the companies do psychometric testing, there's loads of testing you can do to make sure you're attracting the right people to your company and the culture. And I think if you get that right first, it says a lot about what you're trying to do as a company. So, for example, if someone reads something about a company doing ethical work for a company working with war-torn countries, that's going to be something that'll be like, oh, that's something an employee would really, really stand strong for. Think, yeah, I'm going to go there. Whereas, another employee might not be so bothered about that, so therefore they might be attracted to another company. But it's looking at things like a website and looking at how things are positioned on this. It's like the UX, the UI designing of websites as well. That makes a big impact in terms of talent branding.
Yeah, yeah, and how you're trying to leave that impression and showcase your culture. No, I love that so much because I visited some websites in the past where I'm like, oh my god, is this your culture? Like, one of the design of your website is horrible, but like I don't get a sense of your culture. And I think one of the things that that we're seeing right now is that a lot of companies are not embracing this mindset of work from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And talent is they want to have diverse talent. And how does your website reflect that? Do you have diverse faces? Are you that? And because that would depend on who you attract.
Yeah, exactly. You said it right then. I remember once when I was, I saw this opportunity as a challenge, a positive challenge. So I remember going to a company and they invited me for an interview, and it was for a HR manager role. And I was looking up the company's reach, like their values, what they do, and they had nothing on their website. And I thought, okay, this is not people friendly, or maybe that's why they're hiring a HR manager, right? Because for this very, very reason. So I went along and I asked them at the interview, so I can't really see much about the people side, what's going on? And they go, that's what we're looking to develop. And they didn't really see the value in values and missions and how this fancy concept could really, channel in the right type of people. And we worked on a very long project, about 12 months, and it really impacted the attrition, the type of people we were attracting for the job roles. They had less turnover, less sickness.
Wow.
So it really interlinked with every other aspect of the business as well. So talent branding is, really important. It's a very big it's not about just stating your values, yes, the stereotypical ones. It's very much about, okay, there's a meaning behind it. So now let's join that up to the people through meaningful work. How do managers drive it through performance management frameworks, one-to-one conversations? So there's a lot. I could go on and on about this. I could talk all day about this. So I'm going to stop there.
No, Michelle, we can tell that you're really passionate about this. Michelle, I would love for you are there any resources or any way our guide community can follow you and your movement that you're leading in educating the masses around this?
Yeah, so I do a lot of posting on my content, my LinkedIn page at the moment. That's primarily my focus. And that's where I push my tips out, on there as well. So that's where my whole boudoir is at the moment.
Definitely. So definitely connect with Michelle on her LinkedIn. Michelle, what is one powerful takeaway that you have for our amazing guide community on how they can take control of their careers?
Take control of their careers would be to believe in yourself and take action and make that change, and ignore any negative thoughts coming into your head. And what I found is, it's a bit more than a takeaway right now, but COVID-19, I think, has made many people rethink their careers. Start, and if you're still thinking and procrastinating, just take that leap and go for it.
I love that. Michelle, thank you so much for hopping on our Guide Live B2B Jam session. Michelle, we need to have you on for a future episode so you can spread your rays of positivity and knowledge with us. What do you think?
I absolutely agree. I love to spread positivity. I'm all about that. So it's been a pleasure, Tim.
Thank you, Michelle. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Man, what a powerful episode. Back to back, Sree and Michelle. If you love this episode, definitely show us some love. Like us, share this with your network. Tell the masses, tell your friends, your teammates, your loved ones, your professional communities, whatever it is. Let them know that we go live every single day from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. PDT, Pacific Standard Time. And more importantly, check out guideapp.co. Sign up to get access to our early beta. We are chugging and we are moving, and we already have customers onboarded. And we are excited to continue to expand. So definitely check out guideapp.co so you can be a part of our movement and get access to our early beta. With that said, if you enjoyed today's episode, once again, please share it out. If you have any feedback on future episodes or anyone that you think I should interview, it could be you. Please reach out to me. I am always looking for guests, literally always looking for guests. So I would love to have you on our platform, because our platform is your platform. With that said, as always, y'all, peace, love, and abundance. Talk soon. Peace.